Exploiting the Dynasty marketplace and using Josh Jacobs as our most recent guide. That and more this week on the Footballguys Dynasty Show. And Jordan, it was Josh Jacobs week, but it was also backup running back week. And you know what? I think it's going to turn to backup running back month here to close the fantasy season.
Oh, you know my excitement. I was literally in a celebratory dance when Josh Jacobs ran that run-in at the end of that game. It had cut out from live television in my market because we had the Fox game nationally, and it was the last game on, so Red Zone didn't cover it. But I saw the highlight right afterwards. Super exciting. Goes for 300 yards, and it was a banner week, honestly. Samaje Perine, Rashad White, the patience factor of these guys, Latavius Murray, Jermichael Hasty flashes, like a lot of backup running backs. You probably didn't have Hasty in your lineup, but the other guys certainly were there. And Jacobs, leading the charge this week as running back one. I think Jacobs is such a lesson to learn in Dynasty. If you look at his production over the past 3 years, you have 2 top 12 seasonal finishes at the running back position, and 1 running back 21 finish. That was when he got hurt as a rookie. But the consistency of his production has been remarkable. 14.9 points as a rookie, points per game. As in his second year, it was 15.7. In his third year, it was 15.3. So he literally scored within a 1 point, or actually 0.8 of a point range in his first 3 years. And it did it a variety of ways, right? We'd seen him be a top 7 running back in terms of actual rushing yards as a rookie in only 13 games. Last year, we saw him be a top 5 guy in terms of catching passes. And that was a super durable profile because it's really safe because there's a lot of outs, right? It's like dealing with a flush and a straight draw in the same hand, a straight and a flush draw in the same hand in poker, right? You've got a lot of outs, you got a lot of ways to hit, but if you sort of combine the two, you've got the nuclear codes, and he was the cheat code, right? He was the cheat code, and when they both hit, the receiving side and the rushing side, we had proof of concept on both sides. They just hadn't combined yet. And when they do, you get performances like this. And running back 2 on the season, him and Ekeler going to duke it out hopefully here down the stretch. 2 guys that we like quite a bit.
Yeah, and let's think back to the offseason. A lot of the dialogue, if you just say Josh Jacobs, was around the 5th-year contract not being picked up, that is an overt negative implication for what is going to happen in the following season. But guess what the other side of that is? They're going to use him a truck ton because this is the last year they have him under control. That what do we see a lot of times? They burn running backs when they have them on 1-year deals, franchise tags, 5th-year options, restricted tags, whatever it is, or the last year of a money deal, whether rookie contract or otherwise. And here's the other part. Here's probably the most laughable part. The first laughable part was the market being like, oh, Josh Jacobs, let's fill in the blank. He's a 24-year-old and he's a first-round pick, and let's put him in the running back 20s. What we know now and what we knew then about how flimsy the running back market is, that type of profile should not have been there.
No.
So it still would have been low. The point is, but what we've gotten in the top 2 or 3 for the position this year, it's still too low. Wherever he was and wherever he is too low. But the thing is that profile should have been higher, even with some of the other factors. Here's the other thing. They drafted Zamir White, and I honestly think part of it was the name Zamir White, former 5-star out of a big blue blood program of Georgia or Alabama or one of those type teams and programs for filling the NFL with running backs. And the fact that Zamir White went there, I think overshadowed that it's a day 3 running back going there that's going to unseat in a rookie year a first-round running back that had already done what Jordan outlined. So I think that's one of the key points is first, Zamir White being run out, what was actually impacting the market value and the tea leaves of what's going to happen in 2022, which he's had 0 factor. Amir Abdullah isn't even scared right now of losing his role to Zamir White. And then you also had the factor of, well, he shouldn't be running back 20-something based on not a 5th-year option being picked up because his first 3-year optics were different than, say, Clyde Edwards-Helaire or other first-round or Sony Michel that didn't look very good, or Trent Richardson by the time he was in year 3 per se. So we had a lot of different optics and different looks for these profiles that ultimately did not work out, where Josh Jacobs was not really on that track. And I think you outlined it well with there was 2-way and 3-way goes here. And when you hit on all of them, then you have explosive upside. And I think that's to outline something that has not worked out this year, but something that I remember you talked about in the offseason was DeAndre Swift. He has outs, he has methods to being the running back 1. And what is that? Huge PPR upside. It is Austin Ekeler like. Now, that's an example of we don't know what's going on in Detroit. We don't know what's in that water. We don't know what's happening because we can't figure it out. Justin Jackson is largely playing over him or even with him at a minimum. So that's an example of, does it not work out ever? Is DeAndre Swift the 2023 play and turn into Josh Jacobs? Let's see how that plays out. But it's identifying those types of profiles, because when you get this type of outcome, it changes seasons. One example is, and Jordan, I'm so far behind you, it's not even funny, but we're in a league together and I was dead in the water, 1-5. I was turning my roster towards 2023. I can't lose now. I'm 1 game out of the playoffs because I've won 5 out of 6, or I don't know what it is, but I've won a lot. And now it's like, well, I'm in. And part of the reason is I won last week. And part of the reason is if you have Josh Jacobs, you didn't lose last week. So, the thing is, though, if you hit on running backs, and I think that's a prime example. I have Samaje Perine on my team. I have Latavius Murray on my team. So these are ways that you get insta starters. And we talk about it for 12 months, but I think it's really a couple months out of the season when they start hitting where it really comes into focus and says, this is why it matters. And Josh Jacobs is the highlight of that, but little names like P. Ryan or Rashad White getting a little start here and there. Maybe you needed to trust Brian Robinson this past week. He came up big. So these are all examples of you have more confidence in that than what you're going to get from streaming and picking up Richie James or picking up, a wide receiver X. That part of the reason, and it's always been in my thoughts, but saying it a couple times today on various shows, part of the reason running back is such a focus on the waiver wire and quarterback too, is that wide receivers off the waiver wire generally stink. So that's another ancillary point. It's not just pro running back. It's also con wide receiver. If you really monitor wide receiver, first of all, dynasty teams generally have a lot rostered, frankly, too many. And
way too many.
Yeah. So the waiver wire is far more stripped out, and the injury away thing doesn't really work at wide receiver. Tyler Boyd is not going to turn into literally the reincarnate of Jamar Chase if Jamar Chase is out. But yet we've talked about, what do we say? It's the proxy or principle, the Alexander Madison principle or proxy, whatever it is.
Theorem.
Yeah. Okay, whatever. That we need all those Big Bang Theory words. That but they can actually have a higher market share of the backfield than the starter because the running back 3 is so bad. So that doesn't work at wide receiver. It definitely doesn't work at tight end. Ask Parker Hesse. It doesn't work that way. So
Jack Stoll.
That's one of the big points. But this week is literally confetti falling from the ceilings of running backs that are generally available that we were kind of maybe sort of interested squinting last week or 3 weeks ago. They were on our minds, but now they are in full focus and you're going to see teams run at them and try to pick them up. So wide receiver, that doesn't happen. Ever. One injury doesn't change the whole dynamic at wide receiver, and it changes the entire game at running back.
Yeah, and I think like if you're newer to the show, part of the thing that we embrace with is you embrace the variance of what these running backs can offer you. Okay, because you can capture it. What do I mean by that? There's a lot of times there's zero chance that Samaje Perine is going to be in your lineup. Right? A lot of weeks, if it's a basic logic question. If Mixon healthy, Samaje Perine on bench, right? It's kind of one of those SAT type deals. But if Mixon out, Samaje Perine in, right? And you start adding those on top of each other, right? So, if Melvin Gordon out, if Melvin Gordon cut, Latavius Murray in, right? You keep adding these up, Rashad White, right? Brian Robinson, right? You keep adding them on top of each other. And what happens is the numbers begin to really kick in your favor. So what'll happen is you've got, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 running backs on your bench. And what you're doing is from week to week, the odds are you're going to have a streaming option, right? The odds are, and especially at this time of year when it really matters, you can punch way above your weight on your roster, because what's going to happen is you're going to have a running back that you can confidently start, right? That's the name of the game. And the math over and over and over and over and over again has proven that to be true. And so that's the bet you want to make, right? That's the bet you want to make. And it really, and you hit it on the head. There's two positions that it matters at: quarterback and running back, because in any given point, right, you're never going to feel super comfortable streaming a wide receiver like Richie James. Like it might be the wide receiver one. No offense, Darius Slayton for the Giants. And are you ever going to feel good with him in your lineup? But if you have, JaMychal Hasty and Etienne's going to be out and Henderson's going to be inactive, wheels up, right? And that's kind of the deal. And we keep seeing that, and it's not too late, right? There's plenty of guys out in the waiver wire this week that you can sort of you can tinker with 20% of your roster this week and optimize it, and it's not too late. So now's the time.
Yeah, the challenge this week is finding drops.
Correct.
So finding drops, but also here, being very specific about saying I don't have one. My options are better. And why did I pick up that player and I've been holding them for a month? Those are the key questions for Dynasty GMs this week. I want to do a dramatic reading of wide receivers, just a bunch of them, between about 50 and 100. These are guys, again, that's 7 or 8 wide receivers on a given Dynasty team, which frankly, in a lot of leagues is the norm. If and that's probably mid-20s to later 20s in roster size. They got that many wide receivers. I mean, when do you have confidence? Alec Pierce. Oh, he's had some flashes. Are you key weeks here? You're going to put him in your lineup, not because you have to, because you want to. Good luck. Paris Campbell, same sort of thing. Nico Collins. I mean, these are guys that have actually shown something this year, but the moment they give you a flash, they take it away. The rug is gone, pulled out from under you. David Bell. Nice story. He's done almost nothing. These are young players. I mean, Isaiah McKenzie, the moment he puts up 2 touchdowns, you put him in next week, his start rate doubles. What is he going to do, Jordan? 2 touches, right?
Right.
2 touches. That's the move.
Right.
That's the move. DJ Chark, I thought big things for him this year. You know what big things? 1 game. And no one expected it. It was a week ago or something? No one saw that coming at all. He puts up a nice game. Demarcus Robinson, good luck trusting that. KJ Osborne, injury away, I guess? But when is the injury, and are you going to trust it that week? Probably not. Corey Davis. When are you? So these are a lot of guys that are auto rostered. Auto rostered. You're holding on right now to Laviska Shenault instead of a running back that might be the difference for you. Will Laviska Shenault ever be a predictable difference for you? Again, these are just, and again, Josh Jacobs is a high-flying example. And actually, we're going off in a completely different direction because we spitfired kind of what the show was going to be. And I was immediately thinking, because again, we're shooting for 4 heads, a top example would be guys like Deshaun Watson, right? I mean, we've been talking about him for 18 months, and he's still like, quarterback 9, 10, 11?
Right.
What do you think is going to happen if he has one good game? What if week 13, if he has a good game, does everyone just go, oh, I remember. That's right. He is really good. Oh, he is in front of my face. Is that what's going to happen, Jordan?
I don't know. This is a curious one. I don't know the answer to that.
There's more teeth
but he's the ultimate, he's the ultimate asymmetric outcome, right? Because he's the type of player that can turn your league on its head. And
we've been banking on that for a year plus now.
Yeah, and honestly, like with some of the quarterbacks that I've been rostering this year, I need it. Like I thought he was going to be a luxury. It's a necessity now. I think I've gotten all of my Watson teams to the point where I'm still alive, and I've got a couple that are like in contention for a bye. And honestly, to look at that team with Watson playing down the stretch, it's going to be scary to be on the other side of that. Right? I feel pretty confident about that. We did some stuff, by the way. I wrote an article in the off season. We dug it back up, and Joe put it out on the Twitter feed. I think today or last night, I added some stuff as well on mine, so you can go check it out. The history of quarterbacks coming back from a long absence. It's actually surprisingly good, which wasn't something that I expected. But I expect Watson to be good. and maybe not necessarily week 1, quarterback 1, but I expect him to be good. And hopefully it's down the stretch. And if it takes a little bit of time to get his sea legs back under him, definitely for next year. But I expect to see flashes this year, and that offense if he's good, like he can really help them this year. Like they're not out of this yet, and your dynasty team's not out of it either. He's a huge asymmetric outcome. It's going to be a really interesting potential for the close of this team with Watson teams.
Yeah, the profile of Josh Jacobs is one that I was digging into today, saying, is there a low-hanging fruit parallel to something that we can look forward to in 2023? Now, it may take to the springtime to find where that value in the market. Again, Jacobs was a very case where he was underrated no matter what, but we needed the 5th-year option not being there. Zamir White certainly didn't help his value. And
the
so
Hall of Fame game.
Yeah. So, we kind of go through this stuff and all these things compound upon each other.
Right.
So looking right now, it might be a difficult practice, but I did write down a few things. And I think a quarterback, and we call it profile hunting. So I guess Josh Jacobs could just be a proxy for that. But, I think Deshaun Watson, we're talking about, outcomes on a pyramid there of what could actually happen. And just a reminder, Watson was on that track to be like Patrick Mahomes, or in that air of instant phenom impact, and not, I'm not going to call it fluky, but not rushing centric in the NFL, where you're kind of curious how long that stays. Does it go away? All those types of factors. How do they acclimate to the NFL? The other one I came up with, which we've been saying for a while, where you say, oh, in the prime, could produce a while. Why are they so low type players like Josh Jacobs? And one we say all the time is Dak Prescott. Why is he so low? Why is he where he is? He has a profile that says he should be in the top 3, 4, 5. You can argue when you're in that zone, but I don't think when the market sits there and says it's quarterback 10 or something, like that's an easy argument of saying, why? Why is he at 10? Because you can make the clear argument that, the weapons could easily get better next year. I think people are, a lot of times they think it's CeeDee Lamb and who else in the passing game. You're seeing with Patrick Mahomes, as long as the weapons are okay, it's fine. And Dak is definitely a good enough quarterback to raise his weapons around him, and he doesn't need a great situation. Some quarterbacks need great around him. He's not one that needs great. So again, he's one that I think we're going to go into the offseason, and you're going to be able to, if you don't get your primary plan of, I got Mahomes up at 101, 102, whatever it is, like Dak Watson stack may still be around, right, in that late first type range that may be accessible for you. The other name I came up with, I didn't come up with a clear wide receiver. I think that's a little trickier with where we stand right now. Running back, there's not a Jacobs out there at running back 20 plus, in my opinion, of the profile they built. But what do you think about George Kittle? We've talked a lot about just when you got weird white noise stuff going on, like he just isn't getting the targets. And you've said before, efficiency, and if you don't align with the workload, then people aren't going to really notice that much. Eventually, they're going to grow tired of not getting enough work. He's definitely one that he's been tight end one, and now he's fallen off. I don't think it's age-based. I think it's just, look at the all-star team around him. The quarterback isn't really a huge dominator. So Kittle was the other one I came up with of he could change your season. Now it's at a less optimal position unless he comes all the way home as tight end one. But again, I think that's one that applies.
Yeah, I think the other one too is, and we talked about this, and this is the two that come to mind for me. A couple of years ago was Leonard Fournette, right? He had the two halves, right? He had the running, he had the Jacobs running role. We knew he could do that, and then he came through with the receiving game, and we sort of knew he could do that. And we said, if it ever comes together, that's it. I think the one this year that we've also seen is Jalen Hurts, right? We knew that he could run. We didn't know what the passing volume was going to be, right? We knew that
was the AJ Brown the signal?
Correct.
Was that part of the signal,
or were we wrong? Right? Is that which one of those two things, like, was that superfluous, or was that a signal? Because if it was a signal, he has quarterback one upside, and we have seen him be able to sort of get not all the way there. I mean, Mahomes is just at a different level, but that's a good example of it sort of coming together on both ends as well. So yeah, I mean, I think consistently looking at these different things and where guys stand out, I think more and more. And I've gotten a little bit spooked on this throughout the time, and I have to be maybe a bit careful not to be chasing, mirages out in the desert. But when you see eliteness, right, when you see elite play, I think you have to be, there's so many guys that just blend in, that we spend all this time debating between tight end, 6 and tight end, 13, and who should be in that range and yada, yada, when in reality, like, it's a lot of energy that doesn't much move the needle for you, where instead you should spend your time thinking about who are guys that can sort of, that are game wreckers. Like, another guy would be Waller, right? Like, we have seen him be a game wrecker. He's hurt right now, but does he still have that sort of in his range of outcomes? I think we have to be super careful to sort of discount those elite things, because so many of the guys blend in, and if that's just what they turn out to be, it becomes replaceable. So so I mean, that's some stuff there that I would consistently be thinking about guys that have done elite things. Barkley, right? Barkley at a discount, right? Like, hey, if Barkley's good, his ceiling is enormous, right? And and we've seen different aspects of that. I think consistently being on the hunt for that, they come in a lot of different forms. I think consistently being on the hunt for that is a big deal.
Yeah, and looking for are they discounted? Because Waller right now, I mean, he might get to the offseason and you might get a rogue league where someone like Trey McBride goes ahead of him, because they're thinking,
He's
I
been
gotta get young. I
horrible,
gotta get
by the way.
No, I know. Like,
horrible.
it's been shocking. He's been shockingly invisible, and catching 4-yard pass. He's doing on the Evan Ingram route of like, just run some 3-yard routes. You'll be okay. He's the anti Jelani Woods. Is what
3 yards per route run so far. It's astonishing.
Yeah. You question sometimes if he's out there.
Right.
That's how bad it's been for Trey McBride, who was basically the leading wide receiver, dominating his Colorado State offense in college, and now he comes in and it's like, who are you? We don't even recognize what you're doing. Actually, and I wanted to ask, I guess the last one would be, is DeAndre Swift, is this different though? If he fades to like running back 20 in the offseason, is that a parallel, or does he need to show more than he's shown so far? Because he's fading to the point. This is not like he's having a down year. He's still the starter, but the touchdowns aren't there, or maybe he's just not getting the targets. Like, we've seen big time from him. Now, things are happening this year that really make it greasy. I expect he's going to slide more than the running back 12, 13, 14 range he is now. I expect that to fade out if this continues, and it may be worth it. But obviously the optics are far different.
Yeah, I mean, at that cost, like, you want to be hunting guys that can super make a difference, right? Like, that's because if you miss in that range, it's not super consequential. But if you hit in that range, it's a big deal, right? The other one sort of in that range would be Najee Harris. I don't necessarily think Najee Harris is elite, but it's definitely a discounted profile running back 18. Like, that's certainly true.
Well, and if he's out for the year right now, does that fall more?
Yeah,
or does him playing
the nature of his injury, by the way, because
there are 2 or 3. Well, the Travis Etienne one, we need to have Gene Bramwell on for a 5-minute spot. We need to have like the audible factor if we can just have him on speed dial, because I have never been more confused on a Tuesday night with because waivers are in effect. We always talk about secondary waivers, and honestly, the secondary waivers this week might be even more interesting of what happens Friday, Saturday, because we have Najee Harris. He could play this week, or he could be out for the season. Travis Etienne could be playing this week or out for the season.
Right.
It kind of matters. Help us out reporting. We need something. We need someone that is in that circle of trust. We need the signal, the bat signal from above, because there's plenty out on the waiver wire regarding those two situations. And anyway, I snarkily asked if Najee Harris would fall in value more if he was out for the season or if he kept playing. But that's Schrodinger's cat. We don't know how that's going to work. But like you're saying, I mean, those are two profiles that could easily be in running back 20 plus, just because they don't have shine when we get to January.
As I'm looking at the market too, I don't think there's a ton of inefficiency in the market, right? Markets tend towards efficiency, right? There's not I don't think there's huge mistakes. There appears to me to be guys that are very mispriced in what could be an early startup market. And I'm super excited about that. Guys like Swift, guys like Harris, right? Talking about the right bets to make. Those guys appear out there in ways that they probably shouldn't be priced. And that will probably get, that'll probably get erased, I would imagine, over the off season. But looks like there's some clear opportunities in this early off season that I'm pretty excited to do startup drafts in the next month, in 5 weeks, something like that.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird that some conversations I've had over the past month or so where people will just throw out the line, Najee Harris is horrible. And I'll say, well, if you bet against at certain price points, like a round one running back that had a top 12 season as a rookie, I mean,
Shame on
you
you.
have to be really careful about that, of
Yeah.
just declaring someone horrible.
Yeah.
Because they weren't horrible to be a first round pick. They weren't horrible. And you can say that, oh, well, no one was there. They had to give him the ball. No, teams fix things. If Najee Harris was horrible as a rookie, they would have brought in somebody else. They would have been playing Benny Snell. Benny Snell was pretty good this past week. So to say the guy is a jobber and he can't play, I mean, be careful. Be careful. Assume rational coaching. And I think Mike Tomlin has earned some credo that he can coach.
He can coach.
So for them to draft him in the first round and then to play them as a rookie on a team that was bad, offensive line that was bad. Anyway, so just be careful about going too far with your takes, because we've said it before on this show. There's guys that we don't like, and then all of a sudden we come around because the price is different. We're like, I love this guy,
David Montgomery.
I mean, the moment James Robinson fell to backup, I was like, this. I kind of like this. Why? He's a profile that or Latavius Murray. Latavius Murray with the Raiders, hate that guy. Since he's been with the Raiders, love that guy.
Made him the logo, baby. Made him the logo.
How many teams since? All right.
There's been a lot of them. Hey, by the way, let me ask you a question. Rookies that lead their position in receptions, how does that sort of age? Right? What do you think about that as a statement in terms of whether or not that player's good?
Are you referencing Isaiah Pacheco? I see.
I'm referencing Najee Harris last year leading the running back position in receptions. Right. So again,
future Austin Ekeler, calling your shot.
But that's a damn hard accomplishment, right? There's not a lot of people out there that have done that, and like that's something that, again, that's a real opportunity when that's discounted to running back 18.
Right. Well, and with the potential to fall farther.
Yeah. Hey, I thought though that the check down, the 3rd and 18. Check down 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage to Najee Harris had died with Ben Roethlisberger's retirement. Still alive and kicking with Kenny Pickett. He did it, and I was like, yes, it's still here. We've got the dump off to Najee Harris, the 2-yard 1.2 PPR point dump off on 3rd and 16. This is great. It's still alive and kicking.
I swear, there's some teams that do a good job on the give up plays, and some teams are just dreadful. Some teams with a not light box, they will still run everyone in the world knows the draw is coming, and they will still run the draw right into it for a yard on 3rd and 15. Other teams, they run like a cross pick play, and I swear every 3 or 4 times they get the first down, if not 10 plus yards. And some of these teams just like have no answers, no answers for 3rd and 13. They just, and there's someone with their calculator up in the box that goes, well, every yard is worth 0.03 points, and we got 3 yards, so that means we will push them back 3 yards, and we will be optimized for the rest of the game. There's someone that does that. I know I just made fun of nerds, and we're nerds, but just like the whole, like, you're trying to get the first down, and you don't have to, like, if you're so scared of a turnover, you need to switch quarterbacks, or you need to improve your offensive line today, or you need to get some new plays, because the answer is not just giving up. Just punt on 3rd down if you're truly scared. Bothers me to no end, because some of these teams, I see them pick it up. They pick up 3rd and 13. Anyway,
yeah.
Chad Parsons, Jordan McNamara
down the field too. You can draw a penalty. You know what I mean?
Exactly. If you just drop back and throw it deep, where is this? Run 4 verts and find where's the single coverage. Literally throw it short on purpose. I bet 1 out of every 5 times you get a penalty.
Yeah, exactly.
Teams don't do that, and I'm very curious why.
But I mean, just treat it like a punt. Like you're scared to turn it over.
All these defensive back dopes. You see how many times do you see on 4th down they catch the interception, Jordan?
Right. Yes.
They catch it. They cost their team yardage as they're falling to the ground to make a highlight play.
Yes.
Bat it down. Look as dumb as the running back that falls down at the 1 yard line. It's good strategy. You probably get a raise. Drop the interception. You know how awkward it was in like Madden 05 when they batted down the ball? It was like 2 hands. It was like volleyball. And they would just hit it downward in an awkward non-football like motion. The first linebacker that does that instead of take the easy pick, they will get a shout out on this show. All right. Chad Parsons, Jordan McNamara, episode 130 of the Football Guys Dynasty Show. I want to remind you about all the good content at footballguys.com. We reference it every single week. Jordan has Dynasty waivers of the future. I do things like high leverage opportunity, Dynasty trading post, which is coming to an end this week. You can go back and look at all the recommendations through the year. We've referenced Gene Bramall on a weekly basis. We read his report every Monday, the Monday injury rounds. You want to get that first look going into your waivers. And frankly, going all the way into game day. I reference it on the injury report show video there at the end of the week that Gene has you covered all the way till kickoff. And those are some of the biggest keys. When James Robinson was declared inactive, when we have little nuggets on Friday night into Saturday, into Sunday about inactivity, it directs you, tractor beam, straight to who to pick up. So go over to footballguys.com/dynasty winners. Give us credit. You came from the Dynasty Show listener base, and give us credit for your sign up. You won't regret it. Money back guarantee. And again, the content will guide you to better results. Let's get to our sleeper stash of the week.
It's time for the stash of the week, powered by Sleeper.
Dated that it is a running back. It is a running back week. And frankly, I think it's going to be running back month. We're seeing plenty of carnage, and we want it to be a sleeper. We could sit here and say, that Travis Etienne is out for the season and it's JaMychal Hasty. We could say things like that, but you know what?
He's not, by the way, he's not
right. Right. So what I'm saying is there are more low-hanging fruit, but a sleeper means who are people not going to be looking for this week? And I have a sense there's going to be some big bids out there on a guy like, say, Jordan Mason. I'll be very interested to see. He's the guy that got a few touches there. He's right in front of your face. But I think the sleeper this week is Darrynton Evans. Because what do we do, Jordan? We look at backup running back situations, and we want to look at the sneaky ones, the ones that aren't on the best teams, maybe the ones that are just subtle little twists and turns. Like, did everyone catch that Josh Kelly was back this week? And he said, rookie, go sit over there. Isaiah Spiller, you're back to running back 3. It's my job. I am the captain now. I was the captain. I returned to being the captain. So little situations like that. Maybe Josh Kelly's floating out there since he was injured for a while. But Darrynton Evans, he just ran over Tristan Ebner. Ebner was that no pedigreed, I guess he's the last guy around. Darrynton Evans, people forget, round 3 pick. He's got some juice. He showed it this past week. I believe it was 17-1 in terms of snaps in that number 2 role. And again, the clarified situation, Ebner had really no job security. He was a de facto option. And now Darrynton Evans, he has the opportunity with Khalil Herbert out to run with this number 2 job on a team that likes to run, a team that doesn't have a good offense and passing game in general. So, and he's one that you might get him for a 10th of what some of these other running backs this week are going for. Yet, what are we hunting? Opportunity, situation. And this is one that isn't a 1 week off situation. So Darrynton Evans, don't feel bad if you put in 3, 4, 5 bids, everything gets taken, and you might even circle around to first come, first serve, say, didn't get my guy, I got a drop. You pick up Darrynton Evans. He is the sleeper of the week.
Love it. By the way, another classic profile of guys that we didn't like when he was being talked about as a day 2 pick, but the cost became so palatable, right? A 3rd round rookie pick, he missed. That's fine. It was a discount pedigree buy, but now he comes back around and this is another opportunity. I can't imagine there's a ton of segments about Darrynton Evans this week in Dynasty Fantasy Football, but like these are the types of profiles we like because they're the types of profiles that win.
That's what makes, watching Sunday fun for me. And that's what makes, honestly, looking at snap counts and all that stuff on Mondays a lot of fun, because things that you thought, like, for example, I came out of Sunday thinking Gary Brightwell stole the running back 2 job. But then I look on Monday, it was more of a split, of like what I saw versus what actually happened, what I remember about the game. So that's where you need to confirm with the snap counts, with the splits. Oh, was there an injury? What happened after the injury? All those types of things to really confirm or deny what you may have pieced together, whether you're watching Red Zone, even if you watch the whole game, because it can seem different based on touches or based on when they got their certain touches. Let's talk about Dynasty trading this week. Got some good ones. And we're going to talk about some contending versus not contending moves. Key this time of year. 1 quarterback format. We've got Jeff Wilson, being traded for a couple of second round picks next year. Both of them late. Right now, they're both projected with buys, so they certainly could be last 2, 3, 4 picks of the round.
What do you think? Like, what's Wilson's future look like? Is he have outs to be the starter in Miami? Like that would be the question that I would ask.
Free agent, so he would need to be
Mhm.
brought back.
Mhm.
Miami seems like a backfield that could be turned over almost entirely next year. They could be an offense where you say, well, we're good, so let's drop in something good and make us even better.
Yep. Yeah.
I don't know. Jeff Wilson's a tough one for me, and
Yeah.
which is why I'd probably bank the seconds.
I think that's fair, especially if you're building it in a way that you've got other guys, right? That you have, you got the P Ryans, like you're building rosters the right way. I think this is a good way to bank the picks. Would sort of be my thought.
Isn't a scary trade to make though? If like Wilson's in your lineup every week and you're like, I don't have outs. It's easy to make if you have running back depth. If you don't,
Right.
I still try to tell people if this is good value, it's tough not to make it.
Yep.
Because if trading's open, who's to say you can't trade a second for a running back you can still start?
Right.
Because like your principle, if he's not a difference maker, now he could be. If Mostert comes back though, is he still a difference maker?
He whitewash Mostert though.
No,
Like,
I know. No, I know. I'm just
he took him in a
creating-
snowbank and just shoved his face in it and took his job.
I mean, it wasn't Darrynton Evans level, but he's no Darrynton Evans. Who said that? No one's going to say that on a show this week. Jeff Wilson is no Darrynton Evans. Don't you mix words. So you're a little more on, I think it's okay.
I think probably the right play is to take the picks. Is I think the right, like, but I see outs.
Well, let's look at the other side. You're saying it's okay to buy him for that. That's what you're saying.
No, I wouldn't buy. Well, right. So, no. My point was that I think if you're in a spot where you have depth, right? This is a good way to deal from depth, I think. But if you're kind of stuck, right? If you're in a spot where he's a contending piece, like part of me thinks he's got outs to be a starter next year, right? That's part of the balance of it is like, all right, are you just resetting the clock with a couple of backup running backs, which you've actually got one in the hand right now, right? That's kind of where you're at with this. And it's a balance. I think the right historical play would be to take the picks, but I could see a way that Wilson wins.
Well, you get the 2 picks though, and we've said before. I mean, you can use those 2 picks. Does that get you to trade up to 201? Does that get you to someone you really like? Could you trade one for a discounted wide receiver? Does one of those picks get you Tyler Lockett? Can you trade one of those picks for Alexander Mattison? He has outs for 2023. So I don't know. I like the liquidity of it, and I'll just mention the classic line we say, which is, you create a roster spot, maybe you're picking up one of these guys that becomes the next Jeff Wilson.
Absolutely.
So if you're tight on roster spots, I mean, this might be a good week where you go, I'm getting a pretty good running back that I like onto my team that otherwise I didn't have a spot for.
Hey, speaking of Jeff Wilson and former San Francisco running backs for that matter, like TDP's got live outs to be a league winner. Like with Mitchell
going from inactive.
Right, coming from inactive, like McCaffrey. I don't know what the hell Shanahan's doing.
People react a lot to the healthy scratch thing, and if you don't play special teams and you're not running back 1, I get it.
Right,
I get it. Like, you need guys that play specials.
Right,
that's part of putting together an active roster for game day.
Right, we've seen like 1 week where Elijah Mitchell wasn't active, and it was TDP or Jordan Mason, and TDP went 14 carries, Mason went 0. Right, we already have proof of sort of what they have thought about that.
This is also about like James Robinson this week. He was a healthy scratch, and I think everyone assumes it's Hasty's job if Etienne were out. So first of all,
or Zonovan White's though, right? Like Zonovan. Did you say James Robinson? Or did you say Darrell Henderson?
James Robinson
with the Jets.
Yeah, he was healthy scratch. But the assumption is, again, if he doesn't play special teams, look at what they were looking. They're like, okay, well, we got Carter, we got Hasty, we got Snoop Connor, and that's what we're rolling in game day. But that doesn't mean with a week to say, if Carter's out, what are we going to do, that Robinson isn't active. They traded for him like within a month, right? I mean, it's like So the fact that you assume he's fallen out of favor that fast, and then he's going to be a 0 in terms of a factor if you say that Carter is out,
right,
blows my mind.
Yeah, and I mean, so they bring in Zonovan White this week, or
He
Zonovan
was
Knight,
active
excuse
because
me.
he was
Right.
I just
Yeah, and then Ty Johnson as well. So again, that situation. But I think if Carter came back, like, so my thought in the dynasty and the waiver wire of the future this week was like, what Zonovan Knight isn't that big of a deal because I think it's a clouded situation, right? Again, you look at
he's gonna go for
Jacksonville.
big money, by the way.
He is
I think he's gonna get bid upon
a
big
lot.
time. I don't
Yeah.
and he doesn't have a receiving profile.
Right.
See how this goes.
Yeah, and then you look at Jacksonville too, where you have ETN out. Like, I thought Hasty was going to actually slide because they brought in Darrell Henderson. I had actually moved
too.
off of I had
Me
moved
too.
in the right before the 1 o'clock games. I had moved off a few Hasty shares for some Ty Johnson, and so it's just I ended up actually being totally kind of like left out in the wind on that one.
I notated that same thing. I moved
Yeah.
off of some Hasty, and Ty Johnson was one of those pickups that we had late information in the week, and it went totally sideways.
Yes, it did. It did.
That's
Again, it's
an
one of those
example. I
things where
still
you
don't think
spend
the
all that
process
time
is
worried about
wrong.
it, yeah.
Because here's what I
No, it's
thought.
the right process.
Because I said if ETN were out, I was like, well, this game itself doesn't matter,
Right.
because I was like, by the next game, Darrell Henderson would have to be like, I truly believe he'll be a factor.
Right.
So we kind of are here. It just feels really icky that, Hasty popped a little bit. It was mostly in the receiving game, and so we still don't even know how that would work out. But like, just the fact that it was so in your face that it worked, and then you get Michael Carter injury, and it wasn't. I mean, Ty Johnson again still had a good game. It just feels icky
Right.
and weird. And now you're seeing Hasty on the waiver wire, and you're like, well, I caused that.
Yeah.
I did that. I literally did it the last minute. I didn't have to do anything. I could have just sat there.
Right.
All right.
Right.
Second trade. And my bigger question for this one is, it's a 15-team league. Can I ask you this? Why aren't there more? Because people always complain about the scheduling. But if you just made it so that you'd play every team once in the regular season, and if there's 14 weeks in the regular season, you have 15 teams. And you could have it where one team plays the league average every week or something. I mean, you have ways to do it, but schedule-wise, you would just have it where you don't have anybody doubled up or whatever. So anyway, 15-team Superflex. We've never done a trade about that before. First time for everything. And this is interesting because it's a team rebuilding. And they dealt away, arguably, their two best players, their two best assets, Joe Burrow and Kenneth Walker, to get Trey Lance, a top 5 pick this coming year, which has upside, I read, to be top 2 or so, top 3, and then a later 23 first.
This is a disaster, right? You're trading Burrow and Walker to get Trey Lance, a top 5 pick, and a later first. So basically, you take Kenneth Walker, let's just cross him in the top 5 pick out just for a second, and then you're valuing Burrow at Lance and a later first. Like, there's a reason you're rebuilding, right? If you do this, there's a reason you're rebuilding, because you're
just
doing
copy and paste that rebuilding next year.
Right. It's rebuilding and it's rebuilding, and it's like you hit on a top. Like, what are you trying to accomplish? Right. You hit on a top 5 running back in the middle of the first round last year with Kenneth Walker, and you hit with Joe Burrow for like a top 10 to top 8. I don't know. I'm not going to get into a philosophical debate about Joe Burrow, but you hit on Joe Burrow, and you want to reset the clock. Like, you have 2 answers to the question in a 15-team league. Like, you only need 3 or 4 to really carry you and get you pretty close to a playoffs. I mean, this is dynasty gone wrong. Like,
well, and here's the other thing: in 15-team Superflex, quarterbacks are tough to get. So floor matters. Having a floor outcome of projected to be a starter for the next 2-3 years, that has value. It may not have as much value in 12-team Superflex or 10-team, but 15-team, it absolutely does, because you're going to be left out. If Trey Lance doesn't work out, you hemorrhage just based on the solidity that Joe Burrow has already shown to be a requisite and higher NFL starter. So be careful. And the fact that you included Kenneth Walker, like, do you think it's fair without Walker in the deal?
No. No, I'd still take Burrow.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's taking. This is taking. We have talked about you can take risk. being a rebuild, but
this is horrible risk.
No one's going to be in a 15-team Superflex. You're going to be light somewhere. And so you're not as far away.
Right.
Draft well, profile, and, even if you're light, even if it really is Burrow, Walker, and not much else, grind the waiver wire, and by 2024, you're probably going to be in the mix.
Right.
All right, next one.
That trade's like playing Russian roulette with a pistol. Like, I mean,
is there any other Russian roulette? I don't get it.
Yeah, you can play it with a revolver, but if you play with an actual handgun, did you really shoot yourself?
I get it.
Yeah.
I was behind on that one. I get it now.
Sorry.
With a pistol. I get it. Shotgun. See, I would have understood the shotgun.
There you go.
All right. FFPC Superflex. Kyler Murray, and quarterback is a weakness here. So trading for Kyler Murray and trading away Trey Lance and Javonte Williams to get him.
I mean, this is Dynasty done really well. You trade uncertain profiles for good quarterbacks. Again, we could have a philosophical debate about Kyler Murray, and that could rage for a while, but you have real clear, and this team's contending, right? So you're trading two assets that aren't helping you this year for a guy that can, and you're getting the better profile long term. I mean, no matter what we say about Kyler Murray, he's got a better trajectory, a substantially better trajectory than Trey Lance does. And Javonte Williams is a running back who he's a nice running back, but that's, we've talked about how that's a gettable profile at substantially cheaper prices. Like you combine those two assets into Kyler Murray, that's Dynasty done extremely, extremely well. There's two awesome trades right there by the people who started packaging the uncertainty.
Can I ask why they would wait this long to make that deal? Or to make a deal like this? Because unless it's a team that didn't fall out of it till now, and they want to trade Kyler for two pieces that are for next year, because they have Carr, Dalton, and Brissett. And I was reading a lot of the dialogue was related to, well, Brissett's not going to start anymore. So they were starting Brissett, and now that it almost seemed like Brissett was the linchpin of this deal of, now that Watson's back, I need another quarterback. And I don't like that logic of you could always look to upgrade. You can always look to consolidate, especially in FFPC, because it's all about your top 8 to 10 players. And it's all about, you want to get the best two quarterbacks you can because you can't roster 5 of them. So from those points of view, I wonder if this was a team that is now contending that maybe 3 weeks ago you weren't sure, or if it's a team that, the other team fell out of it and now they're willing to do a deal like this when maybe they were around 500 a few weeks ago.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's probably a couple of aspects to that. If at the time that Trey Lance and Javonte Williams go down, right, Kyler Murray is probably worth a lot more, right? He's gotten kind of beaten down price wise a bit since that has happened. Plus, you say if you're that team and you just, all right, well, I don't know, I'll start Brissett and see what happens, and then you just keep sort of stringing it along, and now you find yourself in week 12, you're 7-5, and you're like, hey, I actually have a shot at this thing. Right. I can see how all of this happened. I actually can see how it does seem like a trade that, hey, if I could have made it a while ago, I'd probably be ahead. But you might not have found yourself in this position. Like, this might have been the only time you could ever make a deal like this. And being Brissett being this good was actually such a blessing, because you wouldn't have probably found yourself in a position where you were making this quarterback upgrade, because you would have been out of contention.
Last one, we got FFPC, 1 quarterback, Najee Harris, and a 23 first from a contender trying to win it all, trading for Austin Ekeler and Marquise Brown.
Wow. By the way, I traded Najee Harris for Ekeler in a first last in the offseason. So I might have had to give a second in that deal, but I definitely got a first in Ekeler and then Najee Harris, sending Najee Harris away. So it's funny.
You gonna buy Harris back in January?
It's gonna be like cheap, like I can net a couple of firsts in the deal
for your second and something.
Yeah. So it's interesting to see it be the opposite side of that. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I look at this and I don't think
love Ekeler, but this is a lot.
It's a lot, but at the same aspect, like, how close is that to, in a 1 quarterback league, how close is Marquise Brown to that first? Like, I mean, I think it's worth more than Marquise Brown is, but then you start looking and you're like, all right, if I have a real chance at being a contender, like if I'm a buy team, do I want to, get footloose and fancy free with trying to upgrade from Marquise Brown to that late contending first and give away a shot at Ekeler? That would be the thing that I'd have to really ask myself, because if Najee Harris is going to be out, you're basically going to kind of implode your team, by losing Harris. Like, do I just sort of cash that in and get Ekeler? I see the ass. If I'm contending, you'd really have to talk me off a ledge to not want the Ekeler side of this deal.
And I do targets every week for running backs. How about this? I mean, it's laughable. Chargers 12.3 running back targets a week. 12.3.
Yeah.
Number 2 in the NFL. 8.2. So, I mean, 50% higher than number 2. I mean, what are we doing here? Austin Ekeler. Alvin Kamara right now is looking over at Austin Ekeler being like, why you getting those splits, bro? Because he had 5 rushes and like 15 targets. It was glorious. They're utilizing a player's talents exactly as they are intended.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah.
It's glorious.
It's glorious.
Yeah. Well, and you've mentioned before, I mean, especially if you already now know that that you're going to be a back half first. You've said before in FFPC, I mean, people will go at those firsts. And especially if the best player available might be a wide receiver with that late first. In FFPC, if you can make a good trade, people go after those picks. And I think that's one format where it makes a lot of sense to at least see and gauge the market of what can you get with a team out of the race to give your first.
Yeah.
Upgrade your lineup.
If you're sitting here right now, and you say, okay, let's condition this pick for a second. Let's just think about this as a thought process. We're taking a playoff, we'll call it a random playoff first. Okay. We know that about the pick. So somewhere in the 7 to 12 range of the position. And you say, okay, so conditioned on the fact that a wide receiver is going to fall to that spot. What's the chances that wide receiver, like him, whoever that person is going to be, versus Marquise Brown in the future? We know Marquise Brown is on a success track historically in his career. Like, we've seen some really good production. Heck, he's been really good this year when he hasn't been banged up. You start looking at that and you're like, huh. Like that's actually is a historical probability bet. You probably take Marquise Brown over the pick. Now the pick's going to be more flexible and all of that. The player that you're going to get there.
But if you choose wisely, as Indiana Jones,
if you choose wisely, yeah. But just thinking about the player that you're going to be,
right. I meant the profile of the veteran. Yeah,
absolutely. The conversation you're going to have yourself there, with Brown later on. Like when you sort of then flip that back and have the conversation about, do I want Harris or do I want Ekeler? I want Ekeler in the near term because I want to win.
All right, dumbest thing I did this week, Jordan.
Cut Jermichael Hasty at 12.
That was pretty dumb. We already admitted that in way too many leagues that did not work out. That did not go well. Narrator, they regret it 48 hours later. Confused. Yeah, the hunters became the hunted in terms of running back cupboard stashing. All right, I got confused by hotel light switches. I cannot figure these ones out. That I don't know if you've seen them. I think they're only in hotels. They have the little switch on the pole or somewhere on the panel. They have just a regular traditional switch, like a coffee maker. And it's not the regular, like I am so used to growing up in the 80s and 90s, the little thing that twists right by the bulb. You know what I'm talking about? Little plastics, like cylindrical, grippy. So I'm used to those. And I've burned myself before on light bulbs. I will, in the dark, I hate turning on lights. And again, you're looking at a light switch, trying to find the switch. I will touch everything, just trying to, what could possibly illuminate this object? And it took me almost a minute once with one of them. I could not figure it out. So Chad, dumb, and obviously cannot figure out sleek, modern, all this stuff. But you know what? Pretty unusable lights.
Yeah.
All right.
By the
Do you
way,
have a dumb?
can I throw a dumb thing I did this week?
Of course. Michael Hasty.
5:40 plane takeoff. 5:40 a.m. plane takeoff. With 2 children under 6 years old. By
Did you just stay
far
up
the
all night?
dumbest thing I did this week. Do you want to guess what time
Well,
my
if you're
wake
gonna
up
burn the
call
whole,
for that
if you had a
flight
10
was?
o'clock, no, but if you had a 10 o'clock depart, I mean, you screwed your whole morning anyway. So what's the difference?
You want to know what time I had
You got
my
up?
wake up call for that 5:40 flight was?
Your self-imposed wake-up call?
No, what time I actually had to get up to get to the airport to make a 5:40 flight?
Oh, I don't
2:30
know.
in the morning. Yes. It was a very dumb
When'd you
thing
go to
with 2
bed?
children.
You don't go to bed till 2:30, so that must not have
I
worked out well.
I know. Literally, I said to my wife when I was going to bed, I went to bed at like 9 o'clock. I go,
Do you even know
there's
how to go to
times-
bed at 9?
Um,
Were you sick with the flu the last time you went to bed at 9? For people that don't know, Jordan stays up late.
I
And
do.
you stayed up. Can I say, for people that don't know, because it ran later, but we recorded, it was so eerie.
It was.
Jordan, last week, Jordan traveled for Thanksgiving week, and we recorded on Sunday night. And just to put a back door in here, you literally said, whatever time, I'll make it happen.
Yes.
And I said, well, I'm not comfortable until I watch all the games. And that doesn't happen until like, midnight or something like that. And then there was also confusion because I'm in Central Time, which we've been Eastern Time with each other for years.
Mhm.
So I was in Central and I was like, so that boosted all the way back to 1.
Mhm.
But it was like Jordan was there though. He showed up and he was, ready to go. But
Mhm.
it was so weird recording on Sunday as opposed to Tuesday.
Yeah, it was. And it was like I think the second Tuesday that you and I have not recorded together.
Ever.
I mean, the
Ever.
only other one was when my daughter was born.
Yeah.
Like that. I mean, I can't remember the last
So that
time.
you just said you
besides
got up
those
at
2.
2. So this was as much of a alarm situation of big family, young
Mhm.
kids traveling on a flight first thing in the morning. So that's the second time. The other one was a birth of a person. And this one was literally your family trying to go to another state on a plane. Those are the 2 situations where Jordan's like, we got to make this happen some other time. That's hilarious. I can't wait for number 3. I can't wait for what the third time is.
It's not gonna be a 5:40 flight. I can guarantee you that.
So how'd the flight go?
It was so I'll just tell you this. There was a newlywed couple, I don't know, mid-20s sitting behind us. And I don't think they're gonna have kids for a while.
Wow. You mean your kids weren't asleep?
Scared them off.
Your kids weren't asleep at 6 a.m.?
No, Chad, they weren't.
They've been
weren't
up since
asleep.
2. They were ready for their
were-
mid-morning snack.
They were very tired and very cranky on the ride home. God bless them.
All right, we got time for one Football Guy Dynasty Forum quote this week. And this one related to Christian Watson. I don't know if we've mentioned him once. He's on quite a tear. Actually, no, you probably made some sidebar about all the touchdowns he scored. But this comment and this quotal is Christian Watson has reached 20 plus miles per hour on 12 plays from scrimmage this year, trailing only Tyreek Hill, who has 18. So they do all that GPS tracking, next gen stuff. So Christian Watson is the long-legged cheetah, if you will, based on this.
By the way, 2 facts this week that I forgot to incorporate in the show earlier. Fastest running back of the week, 4.62 Josh Jacobs. Fastest player this week. Do you want to guess who it was, Chad?
Wait. Can I ask for the Jacobs one? Was it the touchdown run at the end?
It was a touchdown run at the end. Yes,
you know
it
what?
was.
That's what happens when you're chasing that money. You can run a lot faster when you're chasing that money.
He just saw a bag at the end. Do you want to guess who the fastest person in week 12 was?
Well, it wasn't Aaron Rodgers.
It was 36-year-old to be. He will be 36 on Thursday.
No.
Deshaun Jackson.
D-Jack still getting it done.
Fly.
He's still making people back up with off coverage.
100%.
He's still got that
awesome.
juice.
So
He's gonna be like Dion. He's at like 50 years old. He's gonna be challenging college kids in the 40 like Dion.
Yeah. Dion got offered a Colorado job, by the way. Why would you move from Florida to Colorado to be in the cold? I have no idea. But
craziness.
Yeah,
Craziness.
that's wild.
Like FAU or something.
Yeah. He's awesome. Again, this is a good example of like if you were kind of early, like I took him in a and you and I were talking about some like sort of pre-NFL draft guys to take. He was one of them, like early in a startup draft, like 17th, 18th, 19th round, because we said like, hey, there's a real chance that he gets picked earlier than maybe the market's
combine too. Yeah.
And so he was one of those guys. Again, have some patience with these guys, right? Have some patience with these guys. And we were halfway through the season and people were writing him off, writing Treylon Burks off. Like, have some patience with these guys. And there's probably a reason why they went that high.
Super small sample size, but Jordan Love targeted him on 3 of 9 there. And so, yeah, I mean, you look at pedigree and you look at that depth chart and you say, why not Christian Watson?
Yeah.
Why not Christian Watson over the next 12 months?
Do you realize that in the past month, he has more receiving touchdowns in his career than N'Keal Harry did? And people took N'Keal Harry ahead of Josh Jacobs in rookie drafts. So we're just going to tie this show right in a bow.
There you go. Full circle. Tie those Christmas present bows right there. Your dynasty bows with Josh Jacobs. All right, that's going to do it. In this episode, we discussed dynasty trading, profiles up at the top, discounted ones, shoot for high ceiling outcomes there. Darrynton Evans, shout out to him. It's a good running back waiver week. Make sure you're price enforcing. Make sure you're optimizing your roster, because this is one where even Thursday, you forget, slept through waivers. You still might have some good options there to tool the back end of your team, that it's not so much week 13. Maybe it's week 15, 16, might even be just week 17. But this is where you can reap the rewards with those backup running backs. I'm Chad Parsons. He's Jordan McNamara. And until next time, good luck in your dynasty leagues.